Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just hit that notification button to be notified about our next show. You were live with the App Show. Mike Agerbo here with my good friends John and Graham. We're going to have a fun show today. Apple had some huge announcements. Every year around this time, they have their big Worldwide Developers Conference, and obviously with COVID, that had to be pretty well online. But that didn't stop the cool announcements. And, as you know, Apple is into so many different things now, everything from laptops to smart TVs to wearables like their watch, iPhones, iPads, and different types of cloud services. So, in some way, you're probably touching the Apple ecosystem, even if you don't have one of their smartphones. You might have an iPad or one of the wearables or even the Apple TV. So, guys, some big announcements this week, and I thought we'd just start off maybe with just kind of the top level one that I found very interesting. And we touched a bit about this on GetConnected yesterday, our sister radio show. Apple is going to be using their own chips, not Intel chips anymore in their laptops or iMacs, but their own Apple Silicon ARM-based chips, which will change many things about their ecosystem.
Yeah, so this was introduced by a guy named Johnny Soroji, who was an absolute just score for Apple. This guy is like, you want to talk about crack team of experts? They have been, over the course of the last 10 years, building this A series of processors into something incredibly beefy, right? And so they showed on screen the things that we have trouble with right now, which is, basically power consumption and performance. And, we kind of sit in the worst part of that graph right now, whereas the A series processor, specifically the A12Z Bionic, which is in the iPad Pro and now actually in this new Mac Mini, that thing's a beast. Like it outperforms similar Core i3s. So they've done their work on this, and we knew it was coming for a long time. From an app perspective, though, the big one here is Rosetta 2 and Universal 2, which I think we all remember from the switch from PowerPC to Intel back in the day.
So this is going to allow these new Apple computers with their new Apple chips to have continuity. They'll be able to run all the old stuff.
Yeah, so basically you fire this thing up, and it's an emulation layer that is built into macOS. So that's Rosetta 2. Kind of, again, like the Rosetta Stone, it translates from one operating system language, one processor language, to another. Universal 2 basically is the idea that developers only have to ship one app, and it will actually have both versions built into it. They showed some really cool stuff, right? They showed Microsoft working on Microsoft 365 for them. Adobe's usually like, they kind of drag their heels on this stuff, and I think that's why Apple has kind of probably approached them early and said, what, this isn't happening without you, so let's get you guys on board. And those were both running natively on Apple Silicon. The other thing they showed was a Tomb Raider game running in 1080p, looking pretty good with the integrated GPU in the A12Z Bionic, which that's not even a discrete GPU. So for that to be running at a fluid frame rate and looking as good as it did, it gives me a lot of hope for these new ARM-based Macs.
Is the idea, though, too, that it's going to be easier for developers going forward when they're making software or the apps? If they can make it for the iOS and iPad, it'll be that much easier to have it work on macOS as well?
Yeah, that's, I think, one of the key things here that we've seen coming for a little while now is this convergence of the iOS, iPad, and macOS platforms into one unified system, where it makes it very easy for the developers to program once and deploy many times to those different platforms. And Apple's made some software to specifically make that job a lot easier for developers. And so that's very exciting. It makes it a lot easier for those developers to do that. It gets their stuff on more platforms. And also what I thought was really interesting too is on these new Apple Silicon devices, you'll actually be able to run your mobile apps natively on those devices too. So we're starting to see the lines blurring as to where your app is actually going to live. You maybe download once and have it on all the platforms as well, which is again very exciting, because sometimes you want a mouse and keyboard an actual mouse and keyboard, not an iPad mouse and keyboard to do some tasks. And sometimes you want a touch interface. So it's nice to have these options. And that's only going to make it much more interesting as far as the types of hardware that Apple's going to be making that gives you that flexibility, like maybe a touchscreen MacBook. Who knows, right? Like those are all these exciting possibilities that this new platform will give them to do and make it much easier for app developers to provide for them.
When we start to think about all the platforms that Apple has right now, they say that they want you basically using the thing that is closest to you and probably the smallest device for the most tasks. So they start with the watch, it goes to the iPhone, it goes to the iPad. It kind of takes a little bit of a side diversion there because everybody forgets about Apple TV, which is actually running the same processors as all of their other devices, and then on to the MacBook Air and the Pro, and then the Mac, the iMacs, and the Mac Pro. So the idea that this entire stack of hardware now has the same type of processor, the same development engine, it really does kind of get down to click a couple of buttons and you've got an app that should be functional across all of these devices. And we've kind of talked about this before, this vertical integration that Apple has had, there's nobody else that even comes close to this right now in the world for anything. This has been Tim Cook's vision for over a decade, and we saw it pay off this week.
Well, it'll be interesting to see these new machines when they become available. I think I heard MacBooks available later this year with the new Apple chips in them.
Yeah, I mean, they're starting off with a development kit, which it's a Mac Mini with the A12Z, and then the scuttlebutt, the rumor is it's probably going to be a MacBook Air, and there may actually be an entry-level iMac as well. I'd be surprised if we didn't actually see a Mac Mini in addition, because it's the developer kit. They should be able to ship these things pretty quickly. The big thing I think for people is going to be, am I getting more power for my dollar? Because there is a bit of inconvenience here. And I think Apple is probably going to deliver on that in spades.
The other thing I think would be interesting to find out too is this potentially gives the opportunity to have maybe a 20-hour battery life MacBook Air, right? Much more efficient processing, battery consumption, all that type of stuff, in a much bigger form factor than even an iPad. And so you get all the bells and whistles. You might not have the powerhouse that you are expecting with a Mac Pro, for example, but at least it'll be good enough for, I think, majority of people. And again, Apple's going to find a way to make it all happen in a very nice package.
A blow to Intel, you think? You think this is going to help make them up their game?
Yeah, they're going to have to. I mean, the writing's been on the wall for a while, right? A lot, I wouldn't say a lot, but there have been a number of times over the course of the past 5 years where Apple has kind of missed the boat a little bit because they've been waiting on new Intel processors, right? There was, wait for Skylake, wait for Coffee Lake, and all of these processor iterations that they don't want to ship the old processor with it because Apple isn't the type of company that they'll drop a model and then they'll drop the new model 3 months later. Unless you're the iPad 3. I'm still bitter about that. But, so basically Intel has been, quite frankly, holding them back. And I love Intel. I'm sad to see this partnership start to dissolve. But really, I think this is sort of their wake-up call to, okay, guys, what's your next play?
It was interesting, though. Intel did say late yesterday, that they are still working with Apple, and there is still more devices in the pipeline from Intel and Apple. So, this transition is going to take a couple of years to switch over fully, and Apple's still going to need Intel for the time being, I think.
We're talking all about the new Apple announcements this week, a whole bunch of them that we still are going to cover in today's app show, including what's new for the iPhone and Apple Watch, including a new little app for the watch that tells you how long you should be washing your hands. And of course, John has already downloaded some of the beta software for the iPhone and the Apple Watch, and we'll get his first takes on that as well. We're going to have to take a break. When we come back, what's new for the iPhone and Apple TV? You're listening to the App Show here on the Chorus Radio Network. Back after this. You're back with the App Show. Mike and John here in studio. We're going to talk about social distancing now and how technology might be able to help. We saw announcements back, I think, last month from Apple and Google about contact tracing, actually hard baking that right into the operating systems of their smartphones to allow, people to be tracked after they had a COVID diagnosis. Not really any big news since that announcement. We haven't really seen a lot of I guess, areas using that. But, some of the technology behind that can be used for other good purposes. We have an expert on the line. His name is Paul Stringer. He's the mobile practice lead at Equal Experts. And we're going to talk today about an app called Workspace that helps people return to work safely. Thanks for joining us, Paul.
Thank you for having me on the show. It's good to be here.
I mentioned the Apple and the Google apps because they're using location technologies to help people find COVID people. But you're using kind of a different version of that technology, aren't you?
Yes, we're using the same underlying mechanism that's being used to do the actual detection between different devices, which is Bluetooth Low Energy. That is what's used to do the initial contact between the phones and determine as well things like distance from one phone to another, which is then used to determine if that is something that could be qualified as a contact. And then they've wrapped around that all the contact tracing stuff that goes with that. So in terms of determining who's been in contact with who. And almost what we've done is kind of taken just that one very small core element of it and stripped away all the contact tracing and left just the core of it, which then allows us to do what the app we've built does, which is social distancing alerts. So we'd have none of the contact tracing bits of it, but we've just kept the Bluetooth proximity portion of it.
So you're not tracking people down.
No, we're not. The app itself doesn't actually do any communication with anything off the device at any point. It is all just peer-to-peer over Bluetooth, and even over Bluetooth, the only thing that we're sharing from one device to another is what's called an advertising identifier, which is just what identifies our app to another app. And that's the only piece of information that we share. So there's actually nothing uniquely identifying about the users that is being used at all here, which I think is really important if you want adoption of these products, because here in the UK, we've had such a debate go on around contact tracing apps, and it's all centered around what's happening with the data. And I think that is, to some degree, putting some people off from using them. And to have the impact, you need the adoption. And to get adoption, I think a good privacy by design approach, which means tracking and using as little data as you can, is a good way to go about that.
So let's talk about your app Workspace. How does it work? Obviously, the employees all have to buy into this, and they all have to download the app onto their respective smartphones.
Absolutely. So, I mean, this thing works by exactly that. You download the app, or you have it installed by your enterprise on your behalf onto maybe your work phone, or they provide that for you via some mobile device management software. That goes onto your phone, and then the user still, though, kind of has to opt in. It can't just sort of work without their permission. So they launch the app. They'll need to give it two things: notification permissions and Bluetooth permission. And then after that, the app will pretty much just remain in the background and continue to monitor and look for the devices nearby. And then, as a result, it gives you a notification. And that's pretty much all it does. It's that simple.
That notification, is it like an alarm? Womp, womp, womp.
It's no, it's got the default sound, the default notification. That's as far as we've gone with it. It's early days. We haven't quite gotten yet into the customized alerts yet.
Have it play some Sting?
Well, you tread the fine. Yeah, that's a good one. You tread this fine line between being useful and being annoying. So maybe, I don't know, if Sting would cross into that area of annoying.
So Paul, Workspace, I love the idea. And is it going to be available for both iOS and Android?
Yeah, we are working on the Android version of this. We've had good interest in the iOS version, but a lot of enterprises saying we also have people with Android phones. So how about that? And we are currently working on the Android phone, so that will be coming in a few weeks.
And the price?
The price, you're going to love the price. The price is free. We're making this freely available to enterprises that want it.
I'm suspicious, Paul. Why is it free?
Well, this is something that we. The backstory to this was that we were asked to do some feasibility studies very early in this coronavirus period that we're in, into the feasibility of using Bluetooth for contact tracing, and then out of that we learned that this could be used for that purpose. And then we sort of had this knowledge, and we thought, how can we apply this? What can we do with it? And it felt like the way it would have the most impact is if we could, wrap it into a useful app and put it out there and have as many people use it as possible. So, I mean, that's really the motivation.
So again, this app's not taking anyone's personal information from their phone or letting people know where they are in the world.
No, there's no location services. There's no geolocation tracking. There is no. It really collects almost zero data. It is just in the moment it detects something nearby and then just effectively logs not even the data, but just the fact that it had a contact. So it tracks. It can let you know how much data it tracks. It tracks one number, and that number is an increment, which it increments every time it sees on the device for a 5-minute period. And literally what it stores is that number, and that's it, which is quite important as well for battery life, because obviously there's a lot of battery life concerns around things that are running in the background, quite rightly. And the way you minimize impact on battery is you do literally nothing, no cryptography, no networking, none of those things. And that's how we've kind of managed to achieve good sort of, being a good citizen and taking care of the battery as well.
Paul, can you talk about the range? Like, how close do I need to be to Mike for it to be triggered?
So we've done a fair amount of testing on this. The tricky thing is with Bluetooth is we're dealing with radio, and radio behaves in weird and wonderful waves in waves as well. So people, human bodies, tables, glass walls, etc., they can all impact that. But a lot of different testing in different environments. We've optimized for what we think is a typical office environment, people working at desks, kind of probably not too much in between them, and optimized for it to trigger at around that 2 meter or 6 foot range, somewhere around that. But it will never be 100%. It's just a best guess at the time that we can make. And then it continues to monitor devices up to about 33 feet away, but we'll only register those as contacts when they're within that sort of 2 meter range.
And if I have like a restraining order against John, can I set the distance there like to be like 25 feet?
You mean increase that a little bit? Or
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. We don't have that configuration setting, but it's a pretty easy one to put in if you need that.
Oh, I just gave you your next update you can do.
That's a great, we'll put it on the backlog.
We're talking with Paul Stringer. He is the mobile practice lead at Equal Experts. We're talking about the Workspace app, and you can find out more at their website. Your website again, Paul?
It's equalexperts.com/workspace.
Very cool. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say, any governments or other healthcare organizations are interested in talking to us, please come to the website and check us out. We'd love to talk to you and share this with you.
When we come back from the break, more apps to talk here on the App Show. Stay tuned. You're back with the App Show. Mike Agerbo here with John Beeler and Graham Williams. A little bit of an Apple show today. They had big announcements this week at their Worldwide Developers Conference down in, is it down in San Francisco when it's actual virtual? I guess it's everywhere. So let's talk about some of the other announcements, starting with the iPhone. I mean, there were no hardware reveals. There's still rumored to be a new iPhone 12 coming in the fall, but we'll have to wait and see about that. But they talked a lot about iOS 14. Graham, what were some of the big features for you?
This actually felt a lot like so you've been complaining about this for 10 years, we're finally going to do it show. There are tons of little things. The big one for me is probably going to be the change that's going to impact me the most, and that is the call screen no longer takes over your phone when you get a telephone call.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, it's only taken 10 years. Androids had it for about 8. Way to go, guys. But like that's a great feature. And it kind of almost felt like they looked at, the main features that people have been going to their competitors for. Messages is another key one. And so, I try to, all my Apple friends have kind of got them on Messages. All of my Android friends, I'm trying to get them on Signal, but a lot of folks still use Facebook Messenger, and it's because the groups feature is powerful. It's got a really great inline reply. It's got the ability to alert you when you're mentioned. So would you believe the new Messages for iOS has a really great groups feature, has the ability to do inline reply, and all of these,
all the features of the good stuff that other people have.
Yeah, so we actually did a blog post up on our website, basically, where we said who did it first, which is fine. Other people are allowed to do it first. And let's be frank here, Apple didn't even come close to claiming that they've invented this stuff. They're just saying that they're bringing it to the iPhone. But those two things for me that's a game changer. It's the little things where I'm going to other apps or I'm frustrated with my iPhone. It kind of puts that right out the window.
John, some changes for the home screen.
This is
talk about that.
This is probably some of my favorite parts of the iOS 14 is the widgets, and this is something again Android's had for a long time. Being able to basically push aside some of your apps and put in, the weather widget or some other thing that's important to you, so you can actually see it every time you unlock your phone. And I have to say, Apple really knocked it out of the park. It's dead simple to set up and install. Some really nice features. Right now, when you swipe to the right and you get like your little news highlight feed, you can get parts of that in a widget. And it's great. And it actually just cycles through. It's like, almost like a carousel on a website where it shows you the weather, then it shows you the news, then it shows you whatever else you want. And it's sizable as well, which is really cool. And very, very simple to move around and put anywhere you want. You can have lots of them on your homepage or have none of them on your homepage. But the other big thing, I think, with iOS 14 is the app gallery. And this basically gives you the ability to clean up all of your icons for the apps. Because we do a lot of app reviews and we play with a lot of stuff, I literally counted last night, or I looked up, I have 480 apps installed on my phone. And so I have like 15 screens of apps because it's not all organized, right? Because, you get busy and you forget and don't care. And I just use search for everything anyways. And apparently Apple likes that thinking as well. So now you can actually set it so that when you swipe to the right, it pulls over essentially a search engine for just your apps that are installed locally. And it does some automatic groupings that will put things into like a social folder for all your social media stuff, entertainment for any video and streaming services, that kind of thing. But it makes it really quick to go in and do that. And when you activate the wiggle function to rearrange your icons, you can actually tap on the dots on the bottom of the screen and it brings up a sort of 30,000 foot view of all of your app pages, and you can actually hide and turn off those extra pages. So now I have 2 pages, my home screen with mostly full of widgets, and then the app gallery. And it is so fast and so easy to get in and find what you need.
Is it confusing though, John?
It was a little bit at first because I'm trying to find Facebook, for example, and it's not where I normally had it. And for some reason, it arbitrarily took off about half of my my folders and my most used stuff on my homepage and sort of scuttled it off to the side. And so it's just getting used to this change. And this is beta software too, which we'll talk more about in a later segment. But the thing is, if you use search to find your stuff, you're going to love this because it's much cleaner, much faster, and you don't get suggestions for other stuff that isn't relevant when you're trying to find an app.
I honestly have no idea where any of my apps are anymore. I can't tell you which page they're on. I literally just, when I go to launch an app, I just pull down in the middle of the screen, search for it, and I find it. I haven't bothered with app organization in years because it has been so unwieldy. So the idea of being able to, again, shunt these things off to the app drawer, get them out of the way, and then have maybe those few that, maybe I am using every single day that I don't have to search for anymore, making the organization quite a bit more automated so I don't have to maintain this. And then adding the widgets in. The widgets thing is actually like, I've got muscle memory for going through things like going and finding my podcasts or going and checking the weather. And it really is, right now, the iPhone UI is between me and the things that I want to do. And with iOS 14, they've blown through that problem and made it much easier for me to do things that I want to do.
Let's talk quickly about tvOS. And so for the listeners out there, Apple, they've been making their Apple TV boxes for a number of years. They've updated the software for the tvOS as well. First thoughts on that, John?
Maybe we should hand this over to Graham, because I was actually not paying that much attention to the keynote during the TV stuff because I was trying to catch all my notes for the iOS 14 side of things.
I'm the only one who loves Apple TV. You know what? The one thing that they've done that's really great here is integrating the Home app into tvOS. So we're starting to see it showing up in the control panel. So basically right now, your Apple TV can act as a base station for your HomeKit stuff, which is what I've got it set up to do, but you can't really control anything. So now it actually is more of an interactive portal, meaning that you can just have an Apple TV and it could be your gateway to a smart home, but I think it really does work in conjunction with everything else. That to me is actually a bit of a killer app feature. The one other one, the little secret one though, is the fact that they're talking about more game controllers. There is a fast A-series processor in there right now. We're going to see a new one. And it's going to be pretty beefy because they're going to want to keep up with PlayStation 5 and the new Xbox. So you're going to see another A-series processor drop into this thing probably this fall. And it's going to be a game console that people actually are going to continue using.
So kind of like their secret weapon into the video gaming world. I mean, they've been big into it with, all the different iOS games and stuff, but taking a bit of a shot at the Xbox and PlayStation, I guess.
Yeah. It should be interesting to see how it pans out. I mean, those are going to be more powerful for sure. But I think for a lot of folks out there, if you take a look at the price point of the Apple TV and the types of games that I would say the average folks want to play, especially with Apple Arcade, this could be a really great way to win a segment of that gaming market that they don't have right now.
Okay, we're going to have to take another break here on the App Show. When we come back, John has, of course, already loaded some of this software. And again, it's like beta software or test software onto his iPhone and his Apple Watch to learn about what works and what doesn't so that you don't have to. And we'll get his first thoughts on that. So you're listening to the App Show here on the Chorus Radio Network. Back after this. You are back with the App Show. Mike Agerbo here with John and Graham. Talking a lot about the Apple announcements this week at the Worldwide Developer Conference. Happens once a year. They had to go virtual this year, of course, because of the COVID-19 pandemic. That didn't mean that there weren't a lot of exciting announcements. Not a lot of hardware, but more so on the software side. John has had a chance to actually load some of the new stuff on his gear. I'm always scared to do that because it's not always like perfect yet. So John, from my understanding, you did iOS 14 and you did the watch as well. So before we get to the watch, first impressions of iOS 14. And you were telling me about a feature where you can actually tap the back of your phone to do things now.
Yeah, this is in the accessibility features, and you have the ability to map to basically new virtual buttons on your phone. If you double tap the back of your phone, you can map it to do something, and there's a whole host of different things you can map to it. You can have it mute your device, you can have it take a screenshot, launch a shortcut, do a whole bunch of different things. You can also triple tap, so you essentially have two options. So this can be like an emergency button to, call a friend or something if you need to. Like, it's an accessibility feature, but it really, I think, has a lot of potential for anybody. And it seems to be sensitive enough that I don't think it, bouncing around in your pocket's going to trigger it. Like, it has to be a very distinct tap, which I thought was really cool. But sort of getting back to installing the betas, I agree. Sometimes I've chosen poorly when I install the betas, and it can be problematic. There's been times when, keywords don't even work or launch, or messages didn't work. This has to be probably one of the cleanest and seamless transitions I've seen in a while, at least from Apple. The install went flawlessly. Everything was there. I didn't have to wait hours for it to download. It was just all there. And it was the changes were apparent immediately. Being able to customize the dashboard or the home screen with the custom widgets, being able to collapse and get rid of all my app pages in the app gallery, again, just took seconds to do. Most of it was just me having to go rewatch parts of the keynote to see how to do some of the tasks that were demonstrated during the keynote, because they're not really well documented yet, because it literally was just announced. And 10 minutes after it was announced, I was downloading it. So, yeah, the phone feels normal. I haven't encountered any problems yet so far, and I've used it for about a day so far with it, and it's been great. Same with the watch. The watch, the problem that they had is on the developer site, you actually have to click a link to download a profile. and that link was broken. So on the Apple forums, everyone figured out how to fix it. So once I did that, I was able to get it and install it on my watch. And again, it worked right away. And I haven't really noticed any loss of functionality. If anything, I've gained a lot of the new things that have been featured and discussed. So I guess on the watch side, one of the things I tried last night for the first time was the sleep tracking. And I'm a little skeptical about sleep tracking because I kind of know when I get up in the middle of the night and it's fairly routine, but I imagine if you have problems with your sleep patterns and things like that, there's some good features that have you have the ability to use something called wind down, which is a mode that allows you to set a sleep schedule. So say you're going to go to bed at 11 o'clock, at 11:45 or another earlier predetermined time, the wind down mode will start by disabling your notifications. It'll dim your lights in your house if you have the appropriate HomeKit connections and all that kind of stuff. It'll start playing a bedtime themed playlist if you have one. If you have a meditation app like Calm, it'll allow you to launch that as part of that process. It's kind of like stacking routines on Alexa, but you can build that into your bedtime routine. And then you wear your watch to bed, and it goes into like a dark mode where it's completely black. Even the Watch 5, which is what I have, which has an always on display, it actually goes completely dark to save battery. If you tap it, you get a very, very subtle, simple clock watch face during the night, and then it'll log the time that you've slept. And anytime you get up, it'll be like line items in a log saying, "Okay, you got up at 2:45 to go to the bathroom." It won't say that what you did, but you can kind of tell. And I know what time my cat wakes me up in the middle of the night too, so I have that in a log. But I was actually kind of expecting a little bit more granular information about my sleep style. It doesn't really tell you if it was a good sleep or not. It just says that you were asleep during this time. So
I imagine it's actually gathering that data though. So, because we've actually seen a ton of sleep tracking apps that will do this.
Yeah.
Right. There was the Bedit and a few other things that did map that sort of thing. So maybe that's actually, and again, this is sort of Apple doing their best in some cases to help facilitate a marketplace for developers. Here, we'll give you all of this playground to work with. Now go make things. We don't have to make all of it for you.
That's right. And there actually is, so they've updated the health app to have a sleep section now. And it does have sort of like a mini app store below the sleep configuration stuff for apps that would be compatible with that functionality. So I think just like you said, Graham, that they're kind of relying on the third-party developers to sort of fill in those gaps, at least in the short term. But so it was kind of interesting. And then you also have a wake-up cycle as well, where you have a simplified watch face that will tell you the weather, the time, and just says good morning, that kind of thing. And then once you dismiss that, then you're back to your normal watch. And I was impressed. Big concern a lot of people had about this sleep tracker. It was, what's the battery life going to be like on your phone, on your watch? And I went to bed and I had used the phone or the watch during the course of the day, applying the updates and things like that. So it's hard to say exactly how much time was used because some of it was on the charger while I was getting the updates. I woke up this morning at 62%. So that's pretty good. And that probably normally would take me a whole other day. So, I could be charging it during the day and then have it ready to use overnight and not have to worry about anything at all. So yeah, I think it's just sipping power overnight just to track that kind of stuff.
We're going to have to take another break. We're talking all about the big Apple announcements this week. You're listening to the App Show here on the Chorus Radio Network. Back after this. We're back with the App Show. Mike, John, and Graham here. Just one quick thing, John. We'd been talking earlier about a bunch of the Apple stuff. On the watch, there's a feature where it'll tell you how long you need to wash your hands. Did it work?
It did not. And I was very vigorous about my washing.
Very vigorous.
How long, or how do you know how long to wash your hands now?
I wash my hands like I normally do.
Well, we're going to have to test that out more. They were pretty keen on that during the announcement. Okay, I just want to talk about some of the stuff we're giving away. We're giving away a Belkin accessory prize pack. In it, you get a Belkin Wemo Smart Light Switch, or plug, sorry. You also get a Belkin wireless charger for 2 devices. You can charge 2 wireless devices at the same time. So if you've got a smartphone, maybe some earbuds that can do wireless charging, you can place it on the pad, and presto gazinga, they get charged. Again, if you want to enter, hit our website, getconnectedmedia.com. You go to the newsletter section and you subscribe, you're automatically entered to win. It's that easy. We're giving away thousands of dollars of prizes this year. So we want you to win. Again, getconnectedmedia.com. Hit the newsletter tab and subscribe, and you can potentially win. Also, we've got a great YouTube channel going. You can catch a lot of our YouTube videos up on our website as well at getconnectedmedia.com. But we want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And the reason why is that it helps us keep making great videos. We're doing how-to videos, first looks of new stuff coming out, tours of different types of software as well. So, you know, if you're into tech or a little bit inspired by it, we try to keep it very simple. And again, we'd love your support. And all you have to do is subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the stuff that you're watching there as well. And leave some comments. We'll get back to you on any questions that you might have as well. It's all the time we have left. I want to thank the team that puts this together, including Christina, our producer, and of course, my 2 co-hosts, Graham Williams and John Beeler. We'll see you again next time.